Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and this is games leaving the collection for the month of May. We have 13 games to go through, but as usual, the usual reminders, disclaimers, all of that. These are the games leaving my collection for any number of different reasons, and I'll go through them as I talk about each one of these. I'll have everything timestamped down below, and remember that I cover a lot of games. I play 300 to 400 new games every single year, and that means I cannot possibly add that many new games to my collection, and so most of those games do leave, whether or not I enjoyed them. Take that into account as you go through this video. This is not a condemnation of any number of these games. Many of these games are excellent games. Some of them were less excellent for me. Some of them are still great for me, but I have to make hard choices. Just remember that take into account how many games I play as I get rid of all these games, or, well, these 13 games. I'll also say over on Patreon, if you are a Patreon member, every month I give away a few games. I actually have to update the winners for last month, but you have to, anyways, over on Patreon, if you are a Patreon member at different levels, you potentially are more or less likely to get some of these games as free giveaways and that over there. And with that, let's go ahead and start this off. Oh, and lastly, I'll say that from these 13 games, many of these are videos that I haven't even done the review yet. That's not entirely true. I've done the review. You may not have seen the review for these, depending on when any number of different things go up. Things go in different orders. I try my best. I do what I can. And let's start off the bat with Set a Watch Sword of the Coin. Set a Watch Sword of the Coin from Rock Manor Games. This is the second in the Set a Watch series. They have Sword of a Coin, they've Set a Watch, Sword of a Coin, and then I can't remember the newest one. I cannot remember what it's called, but this is a 1 to 4 player game, although I highly recommend it primarily as a solo experience, as you manage various heroes and you manage the various enemies heading your way, as you try to keep the campfire alive so you can peer off into the night and do what you need to do to take down all the baddies, managing your resources appropriately and trying not to give up your dice and abilities and activations too soon as you take enemies down. This is a very solid, rewarding puzzle with a lot of powers and abilities. Ultimately, there are a few things to take away from the experience. The setup and tear down was a big one for me. It's tedious going through the setup in this one. It is a big deal, and then past that, I think the game runs a little longer than what I want from the experience. I like this. I do enjoy this game. I had the original Set a Watch. I got it back, and then I got rid of it. Then I got Swords of the Coin. They got rid of it. I've had a back and forth relationship with this game because what it does well. But it takes 45 to 60 minutes in a game that to me feels like it would have thrived as a half-hour long experience, which is why ultimately, for possibly the last time, Set a Watch is leaving my collection. This will be the third time that, and again, granted, this is Swords of a Coin instead of the original, but this is the third time a Set a Watch game is leaving for me. Again, good game, recommend it. That's Set a Watch, Swords of a Coin. From there we have Dubious, otherwise known as Dubois. I called this Dubois in one video. It says Dubois over here, and I just thought it looked like a Dubois style game, but it's actually pronounced Dubious. This is a Dixit style role-playing deduction game. Basically, you're going to have these various classes in the game. You're going to have various roles you're taking on, and so what's going to happen in this game is you're taking on any number of different, well, you choose a theme, medieval, modern, Renaissance, whatnot, and then from there you have a profession and a secret. So perhaps you are a executioner who prays to the Dark Lord, or whatever it is. Things like that as far as your secret goes. And then from there you get questions, and your questions are going to prompt the characters at the table to answer those questions. So your question might be, what were you doing last night? And I'm an executioner who prays to the Dark Lord, so maybe I'm like just sitting there saying, you know what, honestly my day job was a little too long and bloody, and so last night I just headed out for some more spiritual exercises, if it were. And the problem is the characters at the table, the players at the table, have a list of the possible professions and the possible secrets, and they try to read into your answers across 5 different answers in the game, and at the end people try to guess what their answers were, but you lose points if everyone guessed. Well, you don't lose. You don't gain points if everyone guessed correctly, and you do gain points if some people guess correctly. So you want some but not everyone to guess, very similar to Dixit, which means you can't just say, I'm an executioner who prays to the Dark Lord. That would be giving everyone else at the table points. But if you just say, I did stuff, again, people will just guess, and they'll likely guess incorrectly, and it'll give everyone else the table points. You're trying to balance that, how precise you are with your words, to guide some players, but not necessarily all the players, to the right answer. From there, we're going to go to Lord of the Rings, the Adventure Game. Lord of the Rings Adventure Game. This is from Ravensburger and is a 1 to 4 player, although again I recommend this with 1 to 2. This is an experience in which you're going through 8 different episodes in the Lords of the Rings universe. You're basically going through that arc of the Fellowship of the Ring as you move your characters around a little map, as you have various tokens, as you trade in your cards and gather various special cards, all while being mindful that across this 8 episode arc, the Eye of Sauron's slowly getting more powerful, and every decision you make might bring him closer to you, but they might be essential things to do to get you out of tricky situations. It is a very light game, and for me, I didn't really say why I'm getting rid of Dubious. I just talked about Dubious. I'm getting rid of Dubious because I liked the gameplay idea of it very much, but ultimately I found that there was a lot of writing in the game, a lot of writing that really got in the way of how much I enjoyed it. I like the concept, and I'll have a full review on this, you can check it out. I really like the concept of the game, but ultimately there were some things in the way of how much I enjoyed it. Going back to Lord of the Rings, I got rid of that one because I finished it. I've played through all 8 episodes of Lord of the Rings, and it's not a game that's heavy enough to engage me on the gameplay alone. It's a game that, like Robin Hood, the Adventures of Robin Hood, it's a game that is very light mechanically, and the story kept me going. A story I know, but having me go through that story kept me invested, and once I was done, well, I was done and I didn't need to continue playing. From there, over on this side, we have the Whatnot cabinet. This one's been around for a while. In fact, from the games leaving the collection today, most of these are games that I have reviewed. A few of them are not. I think two of them are non-reviewed games. Either way, we have the Whatnot Cabinet, which I guess is a reviewed game, but like a long time ago review. The Whatnot Cabinet, I finally pulled on my shelf and said it's time to go. I really like this game. It's from Pencil First Games. It's a great little set collection game. I've played this probably 10-15 times, and I enjoy the puzzle and I enjoy the experience. Ultimately, it is one that I think there are many games in this genre, many games that have, hey, gather various things and try to combine points and score as well as you possibly can, and I like other game systems more. Whatnot Cabinet is delightful. I recommend this. It's been in my collection for the past 2 years, and I've had a very good time playing through this one, but for now, when I was looking around at my shelves and decided that this one, it's fine, it's time for it to finally go. I enjoy it. I think that the decision space is a little lighter than what I personally want to keep me invested above those 10 to 15 games. And for me, the Whatnot Cabinet, great game for Pencil First. One of my more preferred games from their collection, but one that I am, well, still getting rid of. From there, we have Dungeons, Dice, and Danger. This is another Ravensburger title, and this is from Richard Garfield as you, well, go through a dungeon. It's a roll-and-write game. You're going to be rolling your dice, using them to explore the dungeon, and this one is great when you play through each of the dungeons, and then after that it's kind of boring. To me, the exploration factor of this game is trying the 4 different dungeons and trying to figure out how to assign your dice to navigate around them. But the dungeons are fairly the same, and so once you've played the game, once you've played each dungeon once, there's no longer a sense of exploration of something new, rather it's about how to optimize around something you've already explored. And for the sake of this game, I just don't find the mechanics, again, similar to Lord of the Rings as well, I find the mechanics don't support the game enough on its own. It's light, it's fun, but I'm not making enough decisions around the game space, and so to me, I enjoy the process of trying those different dungeons, but now that I have, I'm ready to move on from it. So a game that was good for a few plays for me, but too light to hold my attention for a long time. Then we have Legacy of You, and this was a tough one. Legacy of You, it's a tough one. Legacy of You is a game that I'm just trying to remember what I was going to do. Sorry, I'm just blanking because there we go. We're fine. This reminded me, I was supposed to be sending this game to somebody, and it reminded me I was supposed to be sending a different game to them, and I just wanted to make sure I still have that game. We do, it's all good. Legacy of You from Garfield Games. This is a tough one because I've had such a rocky relationship with Garfield Games, honestly. Shem, on the off chance you watch this video, I'm sorry, I really like, first of all, Hadrian's Wall, love it. Amazing game. I think it was like my number 30 game of all time last year. It's an incredible experience. I adore it. Secondly, everything else in their line I have tried and they haven't worked with me. And I thought Legacy of You would. I walked in on this game on a high. I was all in. I was invested. I was enjoying my experience. I was totally here for Legacy of You. Except, the more I played it, the less interested I became in it. The more I played it, the more I found the experience to be a bit repetitive, and the pros and cons of winning and losing is that they give you things to help you with future games, so that eventually it felt like an on-rails game. And it didn't feel like a game that was well balanced around, hey, you know, we're going to give you small little edges. It felt like this game is so... I think the example I gave is that in a game system like, say, Pandemic, or any game where you're rolling a lot of dice, when you have that much chaos in a game, having pros and cons don't necessarily make or break it. But this game is so well balanced and so well designed that the smallest minutia of a perk you get as you try to experience this solo campaign game, it can really shift or adjust just how well you're actually going to win. And so to me, it felt like it was not about... It felt like it was very exact in terms of how you had to approach it, and then you have that exact moment of, okay, great, I won, so now we get a bad thing. It didn't feel like there's enough agency to work your way around the things happening. You had to learn the pattern, get the pattern, and then from there it was a question of, okay, great, now I won a game, so now the game's going to make me lose, now I lost the game, so the game's going to make me win. It felt like the control over the... how I ended up and where I ended up wasn't as much in my favor, and it was too repetitive game to game. It started out high. Had I rated this game after 2 plays, it would have been a 4.5. But as it stands, it went down to a game that I 5-6 games in, I think I played 6 times if I'm not mistaken, I was done with it and ready to move on from it, which is a shame because I was really, really liking it at first. From there we have Turing Machine. Turing Machine is another well-loved game that didn't work for me. And there's a few of these that are, I mean, I guess these are the two biggest ones on the table as far as recent popular titles that haven't worked for me. Turing Machine, I was all excited for this one. I was so prepared for this to be a game that I love. I thought it would be totally my jam. It's got deduction, it's a solid little puzzle, looked very interesting in the way that I actually tried to deal with that. All things looked great, and then I played it a few times, and I played it solo, I played it multiplayer, and it just wasn't for me. It felt too much like a multiplayer solitaire experience. It felt like all the worst parts of Search for Planet X, which is a well-loved game, and then doubled down on those as well. For me, I think Tiwanuku is going to be Tiwanuku 2 Date is still my preferred deduction game. There are lots of deduction elements in games that I really enjoy. Ultimately, for me, Turing Machine, I had high hopes for this one, and it just didn't work for me. Then we have Heroes Welcome over here, another pencil-first game, and this is one in which you are working competitively while controlling the same heroes. While you move them around your city over here, you're going to be moving them around your board and trying to supply them so they can walk into the dungeon, and you're also supplying the dungeon people, or whatever, the various bosses and enemies in the dungeon, you're supplying them as well, and then your heroes are going to walk in, kill them, and you're basically dealing to both sides. It is a light worker movement game. I say worker movement instead of worker placement because you are moving the workers around the board. That's what you're doing. You're moving them to various spots. It's a fun game. It's good. It's medium weight. It doesn't capture my attention overly, but it is an enjoyable experience just on the lighter side. Then we have... Why is this here? I'm sorry. This is not leaving yet. I apologize. That shouldn't be there yet. Dota's Riding Dinos. That's still on the... It's still a game I'm on the fence about. I enjoy that one. I'll give you the short notes on that one. I'm only going to have 12 games today. Dota's Riding Dinos is a lot... Oh, I know why I put it there. Never mind, I figured it out. It's not leaving, at least not today. Maybe it'll leave in the future, I don't know. Dota's Riding Dinos is a fun game. It's a very fun, chaotic dexterity game. I think it does have a limited shelf life for me, but for right now, my kids still like it, and I still want to play it with them, so that's not leaving just yet. On the other hand, speaking of games my kids like and are leaving, we have Scooby-Doo the board game. I like Scooby-Doo the board game. I do, but I think it's too advanced for my kids right now. It's not... In terms of playing the game, my kids are not going to go to this one first. They go more for Forbidden Island or... Any cooperative experiences like this? I don't even know. I'd have to look what else. I mean, Forbidden Island is probably the closest one to this. This is a little bit outside the range of what they're ideally looking for. It's a little bit more abstract in terms of collecting the various pieces you need to collect the traps. I enjoy it, but for me, I'm not going to pick it over my own personal games. This is like the full-on painted miniature collection, all that. I'm not going to pick it over a game like The Loop, which I love. I'm not going to pick it over a game like... What's a game that's similar to The Loop, but better? Or different. I shouldn't say better, because I like The Loop a lot. I don't even know. Whatever cooperative experiences there are as the world crashes down around you and you're just trying to survive, Unsettled is phenomenal, but a different category entirely. But I like a lot of cooperative games, and to me, I enjoy Scooby-Doo. I think it's a lot of fun. It has great charm, great character, very accessible, easy to play, lots of good things. And still, it's lighter than what I'm personally looking for, while being more... heavier than a game that my kids are going to pick off the table. And so it's one that I've gone through several times. I've gone through it with my game group, I've gone through it solo, I've gone through it with my kids, and now it's just gone plain and simple. Then we have Gutenberg. Gutenberg from Grana Expert. This is one of many games that I recognize, like similar to Turing Machine, similar to Legacy of You, I recognize that there's an audience for this game, and the audience just isn't as much me. I like Gutenberg. I've enjoyed my time with it. It's a good game. It's a game which you're managing a printing press, and you're going to, like, these... It's not really worker placement, it's more bidding on the strength of your actions as you go to different spots on the board to improve the amount of letters you have, and the various inks you need, and fulfill different orders and all that. It has a little gear system that's a lot of fun, builds up a bit of a tableau. Lots of fun there. Ultimately, I think Gutenberg has a lot of strengths to it, and I recognize how well it's designed, while I also feel it doesn't have... I think the way I put it in my review is it doesn't have the literal pretty shininess of a game like Lost Winds of Arnak, and it doesn't have the mental dexterity of a game like Hansa Teutonica. So it falls into this weird middle ground where it's a little lighter as far as Euro games go, but doesn't have the prettiness or the shine of a Five Tribes or Lost Winds of Arnak, which is usually what I expect when you move down a notch in terms of accessibility and all that. I think it's a good game. I think Gutenberg is fun, and I think it's fine, but like I said already, I'm going to pick, in terms of the weight class of this game, I'll pick any Stefan Feld game, or Lost Winds of Arnak, or Five Tribes over it, and so it just doesn't stand a chance in my collection, even while I enjoy it. Then we have Sabika. Sabika is another medium weight Euro. This one's probably a little bit heavier on this one. I like it. I like Sabika. It's fun. It just didn't again, it's a good game. It's a good game with a rondel. You have lots of beige in these games, but you have a rondel. You're moving around the rondel. You're taking actions with it, and it's got a lot of interesting elements that interweave. You have these ships you're selling things to on the bottom. You have these buildings you're building out. Lots and lots of ways to spend resources in the game. Events that keep it interesting game to game. Lots of good stuff, and it didn't capture me. Something about it, again, it all works well, but it didn't capture me even as I played it, even as I enjoyed it. It wasn't one that I felt the need to return to, contrary to, again, like, the way I compared this to, like, a Stefan Feld game. I compare Sabika to a Coimbra or to a Lorenzo Magnifico, and I'd much rather play those. And then lastly, over here on the table, we have this bigger box one, which, speaking of 5 tribes, this was a Days of Wonder game, and not anymore. And that is Cleopatra and the Society of Architects. This is a big box game that looks very cool, and it is very cool to set up on table, except the building tiles, the walls sort of fall down here and there, which is a different problem. But this is Cleopatra and the Society of Architects is it even worker placement? It's not really worker placement, not in the typical sense. It's action selection in the game. You're taking different actions in the game as you try to build up Cleopatra's palace. The box insert, things do not fit in here well. It's a side complaint. It's very much a pain to put this one away. But I played this one once. Not reviewing this one. This is just a single play, and I was like, debated, is it worth diving into again to review it? I was like, I don't. It's not easy enough to get your hands on game anyway. I didn't feel the need to. I like Cleopatra and the Society of Architects. It is good. It is fun. But again, it's good and fun without having that, I need this game. It's very compelling to build things up, and it looks pretty, and the production is incredibly well done. And ultimately, I think there's a reason it went out of print the first time round. It's because it is a good and fun game without being an amazing experience. And that is what we have over here. We have 12 games, not 13 apparently, because the last one is sticking around, at least for now. We have 12 games over here. We have a Set of Watch, we have Turing Machine, Legacy of You, Dungeons, Dice and Danger, What Not Cabinet, Dubious, Lord of the Rings, Cleopatra, Gutenberg, Scooby-Doo, Heroes Welcome, and Sabika are all leaving my collection for this month. There'll be a whole bunch more coming up next month, I'm sure. Every single month, games new and old do leave. As usual, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and until next time, I hope you have a good one.